Greetings, Internet. Welcome to the show. So, I've been ruminating on the film Megapolis that I saw opening night on IMAX. And, kind of, I would say, if you were to say that there's a tagline, a motto, a catchphrase for the film, it would be the phrase, "We are in need of a great debate about the future." And that's what this video is about. I that really resonated with me. I mean, not just that sentiment, but the overall philosophy behind the film. Um, you know, the film is about this architect played by Adam Driver who can freeze time, and he's invented this amazing material called Megalon. You can make dresses out of it that are essentially video cameras, so you can make yourself invisible or see-through. It has medical applications that I don't want to give you any spoilers, but you will find out in the film. Actually, I just gave you a little bit of a spoiler there. Sorry. So, spoiler alert. So, it makes buildings. It's a building material. It can make. It's a magical material. The material should be viewed in light of Clark's law. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. It is magical in that sense. It is a sufficiently advanced technology that might as well be magic. And so in this film, the film takes place in New Rome, which is essentially New York City, perhaps some point in the near future. And New York is struck by a cataclysm that destroys areas, and so there's this debate about how are we going to go from here. Are we going to embrace the future, or are we going to keep going on this seeming dead end that we're on? And that he talks about there's a lot of like this guy's office is in the Chrysler Building in New York, that beautifully designed masterpiece of architecture. Speaking of masterpieces, nice work, Coppola. You have made another masterpiece. I think some people are going to argue it's only a visual masterpiece. I need to see it again to see. I've only seen it once. I've been ruminating on it for the last few days, digesting it in my 4 cow stomachs, essentially, burping it up, chewing on it, cud. I really want to think about it more before I dive in to see it again. I'm thinking about seeing it tonight. It's a couple nights later, but I might wait a few more days and let me think about it, my first impression, a little bit longer. I've watched a couple of brief couple minute interviews with Coppola that seemed to be post Megapolis, but perhaps slightly before. They didn't really get into any ideas. So any ideas that I have in this video are things that this film has inspired on me. I was curious what critics were saying, and I usually don't put much stock in critics, and I was expecting a lot of negativity from the critics. I don't know if critics have evolved, because there seems to be a lot of positive reviews for this film, which I was very glad to see. But I'm also curious if his trailers didn't scare some of these people into submission. They saw all the other people that were giving bad reviews to The Godfather and giving bad reviews. In one of his trailers, he has the intro of the trailer shows these bad reviews for The Godfather, for Apocalypse Now, for Dracula, and it made a lot of big critics look pretty stupid, and I don't know as if that is why the critic reviews are so good. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that these people, but man, I haven't really listened to critics in a minute. There's a couple that I listen to. There's a few that, a few critics that I listen to, but for the most part, like I was a big fan of Roger Ebert. He was my favorite critic. I know Roger wishes he could write a review for that today. He would have loved this film. He would have given it 4 stars out of 4. I am pretty sure of that. It is certainly a visual masterpiece. There is no doubt about that. But I've done a review of it, kind of an impromptu, here's what I'm thinking immediately after seeing the film. Review that is a 2-parter. There are 2 15-minute parts to that. This video, we're going to be talking about this great debate about the future. We're going to be talking about urban planning and architecture. We're going to be talking about that's the first subject that's going to be discussed here, chronologically speaking. Then we're going to talk about architecture as a metaphor for cinema. This is a fable. Megapolis is a fable. And we're going to be looking at the idea of, is he really giving a message about architecture, or is he giving a message about cinema? What is do we need a great debate about the future of cinema? And then we're going to talk about essentially the future. We're going to discuss in a third part of this video, we're going to discuss just the future in general, with a kind of a focus of the future of science. So that's the 3 subjects we're going to talk about here. So urban planning and architecture. This film, the design of Megapolis, you can see it in the trailers. It is not. There's no films that have a future looking like this. This is not Blade Runner-esque like is a lot of films. And that is not a slight on any films. That I am a big fan of Blade Runner, and I'm a big fan of the sequel of Blade Runner, although I need to keep watching that a few more times. And the influence of Blade Runner is undeniable. It's on everything. I was recently watching this movie Mars Express, and I was like seeing it. I don't want to say that's Blade Runner-esque, because they really did a good job of making a new vision of the future. I thought it was like this, but there is some Blade Runner-esque scenes and visions in there. You just can't get around. There's a few films out there that you're not going to be able to get around the influence of. Alien, the influence of Geiger, H.R. Geiger, the artist H.R. Geiger, who is responsible for basically the entire design and thematic design of the alien and the alien worlds and whatnot. To me, the closest analogy, and to his credit, I know he was inspired by the film Metropolis. That's one of the oldest films there is, and it's fascinating to watch a film that long ago, what they thought the future was going to look like. To me, I was reminded of, everybody knows Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Some people argue her greatest work, though, was The Last Man. And she was writing that book during the invention of the telephone or telegraph. Electricity was a new technology at this time. So she's envisioning the year 2100 and the last man on the planet. That's, the world has been wiped out by a plague, and the last man is amidst the Roman ruins, and it's a beautiful book. But it's fascinating to hear about somebody's vision of the future from that time period. To me, that would make a great steampunk graphic novel. Somebody get on that. That is gold. That is going to be a hit. You will get a film deal out of that graphic novel. I promise you, if you are a decent enough artist, because she's already done the legwork on the story. You just have to condense it and translated into a visual medium. I was kind of reminded of Frank Gehry. He is an architect that is known for breaking all the rules of architecture. And I am personally put off by his architecture, to be honest. That is possibly my personal bias for symmetry. His stuff to me looks all squishy, and it looks like you took architecture and put it in a giant microwave too long and it melted. But I wouldn't put him in the category of Jackson Pollock. Like, Jackson Pollock, I think, is an imposter. I do not consider Jackson Pollock an artist. Throwing paint at art to me is like, okay, now put a painting on top of that. Like, show me you can actually paint. And by the way, he was financed by the CIA. The CIA was backing this guy and making this guy. Like, oh, we're gonna make American culture awesome, and this artist is doing something new. So we're gonna. He is not really a success. He is somebody that success was foisted upon us. I use success in air quotes. So I'm not saying Gehry is that type of an artist. And this architecture in this Megapolis is not necessarily, to me it looks organic. To me it looks like biology. It looks like cellular. And it does talk about leaves and things opening and stuff like that. So let's just say that this technology could do that. To me, this is an example of the Titan fiasco. Like this guy that said, "Oh, I'm going to use carbon fiber and take tourists down to the bottom of the Titanic or the Atlantic and look at the Titanic in this death trap." I don't know as if you could make a city like this. I think, no matter what material you have, it is still subject to winds and stresses, and I think you would have, New York's gonna have a problem. All these skyscrapers. This is all their skeletons. Their interior is steel beams. Steel corrodes, so you can't go about replacing all this steel beams corroding inside of all these skyscrapers. So you're gonna have to demolish them. Like, and they show in the film a demolition of a building, and it's like, what is New York gonna do? I don't know when all these buildings the steel's gonna start corroding, but it's all gonna be around the same time. And you will just have endless demolitions needing to go on. So it's like, well, what's the other option? And it's like, well, the other option is to get New York involved in some type of war where we just blow it all up and rebuild from there, and that just saves you the time. So there's no real good solution for how you're going to do that. But I think you run into other problems with a material that you don't know anything about. Like whatever new Megalon type material you're going to have, you're going to and I'm not trying to play pessimist here, but it's like I do have a vision of the future, but it's not necessarily some substance, some material that is some super magical carbon fiber that can do all this amazing stuff. I've read one of the books I've got behind me here. Like these are parts of my science section here. This section here and this over here and in here and beneath there and stacks beneath that. One of these books is called Hacking Matter, and it's about how buildings are going to be designed out of essentially a type of crystal that the interior lattice work, you can essentially create artificial atoms by changing with an electrical variability. So there's this lattice work that electrons automatically, depending on how much electricity you're pumping through this material, they will form artificial atoms. So you can make an artificial gold atom, you can make an artificial silicon atom, like glass. So this material can go from gold to, at the flick of a switch, it can go from gold to translucent to a mirror. So it can either reflect sunlight, it can absorb sunlight, it can look like gold, it's this magical material, and this whole technology is like this quantum dot technology. And I've read books about where we can go with stuff, and I don't necessarily think that's the answer either. I think that stuff is not going to prove to be feasible, both as far as the amount of energy it would require, and also, certainly you could make a building out of that, and you could make a building like this building similar to what you see in this film. But